One of the things that I notice is that, there's so much fear. And that's what I talk a lot about in general, like just fear in general, like fear that our personalities are designed around and created around, and our personality parts are created around. And that can be fear of everything from what do people think about me, to fear of really what's going to happen, in the world. And and then we tend to get really attached to our thoughts about that. And I think the listener here, whoever you are here, I hope you're here, is going to maybe have to, be open minded, because I think what we were talking about before, Chris, you and I both have had that experience where, we're just so upset that there's times that I totally agreed with what you said. Like, I don't want, had times in my life before where I didn't really want to have anything relieve my feelings, because I was so addicted to that feeling I was having at that moment. And I was so in belief of what my mind was telling me about it. Um, so maybe you can speak 2 minutes to that. And, and if the listener is in that place, that's fine. We've been there, and maybe this isn't the time to listen to this. But if you're in a place where you're curious about how just not to feel the way you're feeling anymore, then this is a conversation maybe to be had.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly put. Being curious. That's a lot different than saying I shouldn't be feeling this. I'm looking for that pill that make it all go away. Just a certain curiosity is often enough. Just, what else is out there? I like the phrase open-minded because, when we think about the mind and this survival machine that, got us through, it doesn't take a whole lot to imagine how the mind developed. If you go back 20,000, 50,000 years, there weren't stable structures. We didn't have homes. There was no farming. We were hunter. We just wandered around and we gathered stuff to eat. And when you consider what a radical different life that was with different challenges, there was this healthy sense of fear. In fact, I often talk, and I think last time we chatted, I talked about the Pinahan, this tribe in South America that lives a lot like our hunter-gatherer ancestors. And they would tell their kids, don't sleep. There are snakes. They didn't tell them like stories to go to bed. They just told their kids like don't, and it was very realistic. Like there are snakes and they're dangerous. Can you imagine telling your kids that like don't sleep, there are snakes? They'd be awake all night with their eyes wide open, terrified.
Right.
But so it's a hint of our past, and it's a hint that tells us that these fear mechanisms were there. They're just outdated. So, we've got these shelter. A lot of us have, not all of us. Hopefully, someday the whole world will have a place where they feel safe and have these kinds of comforts. And but that fear mechanism, it's just it's an outdated machine, but you can sense how we feel comfortable with it because that's sort of our genetic patterns of all this time for survival. It feels good to be afraid. It feels good to tell the worst case scenario because it was so successful in our past. It's just right now we don't have, no one's looking to me for lunch, right? I'm not going to be eating. I've got water. When you think about just the basics of having water, having shelter, and of course, our mind, we don't really know what to do with it anymore. It's outlived its usefulness, and that's why studies will show that during our waking hours, we daydream about 50% of the time. The mind's, it's like it just doesn't have anything to do. It doesn't
Yeah.
have problems to solve. I mean, think, well, what's your biggest problem? So all your listeners, if you're, what is your problem today? What are you trying? And maybe your problem is this, trying to somehow elude the problem solver. And that mind that's trying to find, something that's dangerous but so that maybe that's our modern problem. How do we go past this old mind program?
In order to do that, you'd have to make the assumption that there isn't something to really be feared. And I think right now people are feeling like there's something really to be
Yeah.
feared.
And that's when you get into the mechanics of the mind. And that's one of the benefits people, I have because I've had panic attacks. And so you can experience for yourself exactly the flaws and the tricks of the mind.